IA&A at Hillyer, and welcome to Art All Night. We're so glad that you've joined us this evening. My name is Lauren Davidson. I am the principal curator and founder of Museum Nectar and the co-curator of both of these exhibitions. And?
Yes, hello, welcome all. I'm Jarvis DuBois, founder of J. DuBois Arts, co-curator also of the two exhibitions, as you mentioned, The Ties That Bind and the $0 bill, prints by Imar Lyman in the other smaller gallery there.
Yeah.
So thank you. Welcome to Art All Night here at Hillyer.
So I figured that we would just give you a general overview. We do have two artists that are in, one artist that is in this show, and Imar Lyman will be joining us a little bit later this evening to give a gallery chat. But I would actually hand it over to Jarvis just to talk about the conception of this exhibition, of both of these exhibitions, and then we can get a little bit more into detail about how we brought these artists together.
Yeah, so thank you, Lauren. So basically, I'm on the board of Millennium Art Salon, so we had the opportunity partnering with Hillyer to do an exhibition here this fall. So I tapped Lauren to help me co-curate, and I've been with Millennium Art Salon now for over 10 years on the board with the main focus of curating exhibitions that they can partner with other organizations in the city. So thinking about, so Lauren and I kind of came together and thought about, okay, what could we present? Who would we be looking at to present here in DC, Virginia, Baltimore? I think a third of the artists here are in Baltimore. Happenstance, some were through referrals, from some we just knew ourselves, and do some studio visits and make the selections of art. And so kind of thinking about like what we want to show in general, we had like a seed of an idea that we sort of like distilled over some time and a couple of meetings that we had, Zoom calls, thinking about what sort of a concept, a concern that's important now, important to us, our practices, the kind of artists that we show, that we collect ourselves, and this idea of a collectivity, a connections, familial, cultural ties, spiritual ties, a grounding in sort of themes of their own work and practices, and kind of coalescing an idea from that. And thinking about, again, the different elements, sort of the familial, so family ties, sisters and brothers exhibited, in nieces, nephews in the work here, cultural ties, sort of very general sense of African-American sort of cultural traditions, things that resonate with various communities. And then the spiritual component, thinking about how we practice our spirituality. You know, is that sort of like religion, or is it more a ancient spirituality, cosmology, and thinking about the artists that do that type of work and wanting to invite them in.
Yeah, and I also think it was really initially thinking about what Millennium Art Salon has done for the DC arts community over 20 years of working with artists and of all genre, not just the visual arts, but also theater, music. What have they done, and what do they mean to this community? And so in thinking about that really just led us to, well, they're the thread that ties us all together, right? What else ties us together? As Jarvis was saying, all of these different components, our familial relationships, friendships, cultural identities, spiritual identities as well. And so in bringing these artists together, we asked them to share with us work that they may have already had available, or in some cases create work to that point. And that's really the ties that bind. Imar's work, just to kind of reflect on that, he has been closely tied to the Millennium Art Salon for many years. He's a master printmaker, and they wanted to give him his flowers now. And he's a collage artist and a master printmaker, but has never shown all of his prints in one exhibition. And so those, unfortunately, are not all of them. He has quite a few, but the ones that we've curated are representative of the larger group of his prints. And if you've already been through that gallery, you can see they deal with the political, with artists, with honoring various aspects and people in the African diaspora. So that's how that came together. So I guess we could just also start just really talking about some of the art. You wanna talk
Sure.
about Lisa?
Let's start here on the back right corner. I guess it is. Yeah. This is Austin Miles in Baltimore, a resident there now at Studio House in Baltimore, which is a pretty new residency for artists. Believe focus on Baltimore-based folks, younger contemporary artists. I think they're going to be branching out though international.
She's actually from Richmond too.
Oh yes, yes, thank you. From Richmond, and a lot of actually the artists are from the Richmond Hamptons area that have migrated to Baltimore, so they're based there. And Austin was from a referral actually from another artist that we know who's local, and just love her practice, her technique, and her painting, the mediums that she's using. This is oil and also oil pastel. And thinking about the show too, we wanted a sampling of the figurative work, but also abstract work that dealt with the issues that we're focused on in the exhibition. So yeah, we were hoping that she'd be here tonight just to kind of be in attendance and to chat a little bit about that. But yeah.
But an interesting thing about Austin as well is that she's a muralist. So if you could imagine this piece about 10 times bigger, that's usually the work that she's doing. She's very talented in the fact that she's able to work on these huge murals. She just finished a mural in Richmond. And if you follow her on IG at Auz, AUZ_CAN, CAN, she posted a few pictures of her newest mural. This particular piece was initially presented as a part of a larger mural installation piece where she hung it, but then she actually painted a huge canvas around it. And so it just gave it a different perspective. And I think Oz is, she kind of lives in a duality. She creates these beautiful pieces on canvas, but her wheelhouse really is mural work. So she's pretty incredible. Yeah.
And here, the photographs, we'll go let's get clockwise here in the gallery. This is Lisa Brown, born right here in DC, spent some time in LA, but has been most of her life here in DC, and who has been photographing since she was 3 years old. I think it's the first time she was like gifted a camera and took to it right away. And her focus is women, definitely African-American, African diasporic women, their familiar relationships. This is a mother and her child, her daughter, and Laura and I were struck by the black and white, these sort of portraiture pieces, but also the colors, and think about these rich textures that speak to a different culture outside of African-American, almost Indian in their, Southeast Asian in their, the design and the colors and how they're wearing it. So we had to have these in the exhibition. And Lisa's work again is really grounded in womanhood, femininity, and just sort of, I guess, more of a feminist lens almost, and just really affirming and exalting the sort of the womanhood and their relationships and their importance in society also.
And the playful nature of a mother and daughter relationship. These are actually friends of hers, and the mother, she told me that the mother actually parents in a very liberal way, and she wanted to have these playful moments with her daughter, as well as honoring other cultures by wearing their traditional dress, just to really broaden her daughter's worldview. And so it's really a beautiful scene. And this is a set of 4 from, I think there were 8 in this series. So they're just stunning. Yeah. Moving. Do you want to talk about that? Or do
you should. Yeah.
I'll talk about it. Okay. All right. I will talk about these beautiful hair installations, these crowns. There's one here, one there, and then of course the centerpiece of the exhibition. These are all by the artist Liz Miller. Liz is based in Baltimore as well, and she specifically works with hair, and hair as a force of power, hair as an identity. She works in the using concepts of African American identity and cultural representation. And she actually wears these. She's a video artist as well. She's a filmmaker. And so she'll wear these in different scenes and short films. She will be here at 8:30 to give a talk and actually show one of the films that she's worn these crowns in. She calls them hair crowns. And so I won't give too much away, but ultimately, all of this is a conversation about our identity as Black women, and the fact that hair is very important, not just to Black women, but all of us, really, most of us. So she, as I mentioned, she wants to have a conversation about that. And I won't say any more. I hope you can stay for just a little while longer for her to share with you her thoughts about her work as well. But they're pretty stunning. I love that we were able to hang them from the ceilings. Jarvis, you want to talk about Aliana?
Yeah, Aliana Grace, right here in DC, based, right? A young artist also. Most of the artists in here are really like younger artists. Sometimes it may be their first exhibition here too, actually, that they're showing their work. So she's looking at, she was inspired by her father's love of music, and this was a particular piece. The title of the song by the Five Stair Steps, thank you, is this, was from the Weaving Nine. It's a song in that album from 1982, and she's titled the piece also. And really just inspired by a tradition of weaving also, quilt making, this sort of long time African-American tradition here in the US that she's informed by. So all of her work is textile based that I'm aware of. And we saw a piece like this at the Dr. King Library downtown, which was much longer than this. And so we had to think about the sizing for the gallery here. And just, I think Lauren, you picked this piece out and just showed it to me, and I fell in love with it. Love this color combination. Yeah. And it just pops so well. I
don't know if any of you are familiar with the Five Stair Steps. It's a group of brothers. They were singers, kind of like the Jackson Five. And so that's how it fits in. If you're wondering how does that fit into this?
Oh yeah, thank you for saying that, yeah.
That's why, because it's the familial aspect of it. And also her connection to her father and how she came to hone her craft. Yeah. Yeah, so
should be a little quick. Should be a little short, quicker with it.
Okay, yes.
Sake of time.
Are we good on time?
Yeah,
I know we're going slow. Yeah. But anyway.
Just want to make sure, yeah.
So Paula Manns, you'll see Paula's work here. Also Black Star over there. And then the two, My Brother's Keeper pieces there. Yeah. My Brother. That is a riff on another piece of her called My Brother's Keeper. Paula. So I met Paula on Instagram, believe it or not. This is probably about 2 years ago now. And we had coffee and we were just chatting about her practice. She initially started as strictly an abstract artist, multimedia. She used different materials in her abstract work, but she at the time was just starting to work in collage. And I was like, oh, well, let me see some of your collage work. And I was blown away. I was blown away by how, in all honesty, how much more dramatic and stunning and informative her collage work was. Initially she started really in work that looked more like My Mirror, My Brother, the black and white. And then we sort of had another conversation. I said, you really should start working in color. She was in a show that I did last February, which was her first show ever. And she had all black and white pieces. And then I was like, how about color? I tried to push her. Come on, Paula. Yeah. And so she started doing these color backgrounds. But when you hear Paula talk, and she had a wonderful gallery chat here, I guess that was a week and a half ago. Yeah. She talks about all of her different influences. Paula was very fortunate to grow up in a family that traveled for work. Her father worked in the government in some capacity, where she had to grow up in Tanzania and Brazil and many different countries around the world. And all of those experiences and seeing the experiences of the African diaspora and people in all of these different countries really influences her work. And when you speak to her, she says that the stare, it all starts with the eyes. and she finds these, these eyes, and then she builds around it. And what she's hoping to inspire in the viewer is for you to have a face-to-face look at each of these figures in her works and think about, how do you feel about these people? And maybe flip it, what would they think of you? And really have that conversation with the piece. She definitely works to make evident the plight of people of African descent around the world. And now she's even combining some of the texture in the background of these collage works and adding to their person. So you could see the undershirt and the jeans, even the loop of the jeans in that piece over there. She actually used pieces of flags in the flag piece, which I'm excited to say is going to my collection. And, and then the hairpiece, which again, this speaks to Liz Miller's work, given that hair takes up almost all of that canvas. So she's having all of these conversations, and she wants you to look all of these figures dead in the eye and say, well, what do I think about this person? And what would they think about me?
No, thank you.
Want to talk about Bria?
Yeah, real quick. I'm just trying to think how to cover this. So much to cover still. Okay, so this is Bria Edwards here, another young artist here in the area, who's again focused on womanhood and like identity, cultural identity. And I love this painting in this domestic space in this living room, a lot with this texture. So it's a very like flat portraiture style, but then this texture she adds that's really tied into, I think, Paula's work, as Lauren just talked about, and Asha Elena's there in the corner, but like adding that texture and this sort of crackling here in the painting, just to give you some of the idea of the details here. You can definitely take a closer look when you can. And this wall was our hair wall, our hair section, loosely titled. And this was a happy accident to have Liz's installation here, tie in with the colors of the woman here in Bria's work. How she again adds this texture to the hair to get that sort of prominence, and not that the figure's not. I think they're looking forward to this affirmation. There's a really acknowledgement of the selfhood that we were really drawn to, and I love about her work, and just the little even accents like the green painted nails polish, there. And again, this colorful hair we love, and again some of the other details on this stairwell. So her attention to detail, we were really struck by, and had to include her in the exhibition here. Yeah, I'm in love with her work. These are two sisters, I believe, painted here. Do Michael?
Well, let's talk about Michael, and we'll talk about Asha Alana. The glittery one in the corner, and Michael. So we're talking about siblings here because Michael Booker did this drawing, I guess I have to say. He literally does color pen to do his work, which I think is just phenomenal. The detail that he's able to get in the shading that he achieves by using that medium. And this is a portrait of his sister, A Song for Sisters, it's called. And backstory on this is that I literally did a studio visit with Michael and was struck by this painting on the wall, this drawing on the wall, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's just a portrait of my sister. I've been kind of like working on it here and there, and he never showed it. And again, it's a happy accident that we were planning this show, and I immediately just thought of this work because I think it's just so beautiful what he's able to achieve with color pen and the light that is coming in on her face. He did a little bit of a different finishing. This wasn't there when I saw it, and he used paper to do a bit of collage on the work. But it really is beautiful. And when we're also talking about siblings, we can speak about Asha Alana Casey in the corner. That is a portrait of her brother. And Asha works typically in creating fantastical environments in her works. She had a solo show at Mahari Sekwar Gallery earlier this year, and I was fortunate to interview her for the Artist Talk. And she talks about creating these folklorish scenes, and she creates these beautiful foliage and botanical like figures, and then she places people of prominence. She's known to do portraits of friends, family members, and kind of insert them into these folklore backgrounds. She does quite a bit of study about African folklore and Caribbean folklore, and that informs her work. She is a teacher here in DC. She teaches high school arts at Duke Ellington. And she, again, not only creates these beautiful botanical backgrounds, but she adds the mixed media, these mirrored pieces. And a lot of this also has meaning in many different cultures, mirrors and glass and reflection. That's a part of folklore for certain cultures as well. So she kind of incorporates all of this and into these beautiful portraits, and that's honoring her brother. So this room, we wanted to make a place for spiritual influences in our lives, and how that is a tie that binds us to our community and to our families and friends as well. This film is by Chelsea Odufu. Chelsea is based in LA. She's Nigerian American and from New York, but she works out of LA now. She actually just finished the Kehinde Wiley, the portraiture for President Obama. He has a residency in Senegal, and she just finished that residency. She travels all over the world to do film clips and create films on various topics. This particular one was filmed in Brazil, and this is the morning of the beginning of Carnival, which is, if any of you have experienced that, it is a spiritual time. It's not just a party. It does have to do with the Catholic calendar. And so this Afro-Brazilian dancing and capoeira, all of this is done in the morning before the parades and all of that start. These are actually clips of dances, different traditional Brazilian dances, and there's not just one. If anybody knows anything about international dance, I had a friend come and visit, and she's like, "Oh, that's that dance, and that's this dance," and but she's like, you really couldn't tell unless you saw more of the clip, right? But you could see this doll that she's holding, and that's the Yoruba influence in the Afro-Brazilian culture. And again, we're not quite sure which doll that is, but that's what all of this clip is. But all of this has to do with spirituality and grounding before the party starts, really. So, yeah. You want to talk about
yeah. So this is Wesley Clark here, this wall installation. This is God Speak. He individually installed these 94 pieces with some help from an assistant of the measuring. So this speaks to, literally like the idea of the infiniteness of God's language, God's promise, the possibility of what God can do. So this is his sort of visual representation. And it's an ever-evolving installation. We talked about this when he was installing it a few weeks ago. And this is something that is meant to be displayed in total, as it is, not to be taken apart. We talked kind of through that about the acquisition of a piece like this. Like there's a possibility of that. But this will be something that will grow and become bigger and bigger because, again, sort of the limitlessness of God's power and, and influence and the, again, his promise to us and like what he can provide. Yeah. So that's a part, that's what this God Speak, again, just completed is about.
Yeah, I have to say that this piece, in watching him install this work, he literally had a map of where each block went, and each one is unique. And it was almost like Morse code. And he said that God speaks to each one of us in different ways, in our own way. And it's each individual, whatever God you believe in, he speaks to us in a distinct and unique way. and the pieces with the nails in them are grounding pieces, so they're almost like the period on the end of the sentence. So as Jarvis said, this will grow, and hopefully it'll be installed somewhere where many people can appreciate it as a public work.
And that just literally just hit me as you were talking.
Yeah.
These nails also, to me, speak to like the fetish African figures that have the nails and the cowrie shells attached, which is again a different, beyond Christianity, it's a different spirituality, right? You think about indigenous African cultures and their spirituality. So that kind of resonates with me, this addition of the nails, and also the crucifixion, thinking about Jesus and the crucifixion. So it's sort of multi-layered, and it speaks to different religions, I think, and spiritual practices.
Yeah, we could say so much more about it, but I think it's fair that you can interpret it as you see fit, knowing what the foundation of the idea is.
Right.
And I think it's actually a good thing to sort of just shift to the next piece. In speaking about these traditional African religions, and Mahari, I can never pronounce Mahari's last name. Chabuera. Mahari Chabuera. We spoke a little bit about the Studio House residency in Baltimore earlier, by Austin and Miles. So Mahari is actually the director of that program. And she obviously is an artist herself. And in this piece, she is really kind of bringing together Egyptian symbolism, and looking at the forces of nature. It's called Gemini Rising, Return of the Ba. So she does quite a bit of work in researching Egyptian and other African traditional religions. And so you can see the shell work, the cowrie shells, which are representative of the African continent. And she works in this metallic, multimedia materials. And this particular piece has a lot to do with women empowerment. So the role that the woman plays in the birth of life, and in the persistence of life, if that makes sense. So she's doing a lot in this in this painting, but ultimately it's just Gemini being the twins; those are the two faces, and really kind of exploring this concept of how women influence the greater cosmos, and using Egyptian symbolism to express that.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
And here behind us on this far wall is Charles Jean-Pierre, Haitian American artist, been here in DC for several years. And I've known him, Nora and I both know him pretty well, and I've exhibited him before. He's an amazing artist. This is sort of earlier abstract work. He does more figurative work now, but this is some of the earlier abstract that speaks to, for him, the research he's done on diasporic culture, spirituality, play, games even, different expressions of culture. This is, and Haitian also, so he's looking at a lot of times Caribbean cultures and pulling elements from that world, if you will, in his work. And this is, on the titles here, this is solar consciousness. So thinking about, again, this room being the spiritual room, of lack of a better way of putting it, thinking about different spiritual practices and religions. He's looking at, astrology, cosmology, in this piece here. And this diptych here is the as above, so below. And it's interesting, the opening night, I had a woman come up to me and whisper in my ear, it's like, is that artist a Wiccan? I was like, wow, I never thought about that. Because I guess that is sort of an enchantment, a charm, that phrase. And so she thought maybe he practiced that, but also other religions, other cultures. I mean, it's been in Shakespeare, you'll see some of this sort of phrasing. So he does a lot of research, again, in literature, music, child play, games. He'll pull titles for his work from. And so that's like speaking to, again, this different kind of spirituality. And I couldn't disagree with her. I was like, well, maybe I don't think he's a Wiccan, but it could tie to, again, how you interpret a piece, how you're moved by it, what influences, you're coming with
Yeah.
to the table, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you may see Charles's work around. He shows quite a bit in DC, and more than likely, the work that you'll see, you'll be a little bit surprised because it won't look anything like this. And it's very colorful. His work is. He does collage where he actually paints canvas and then he'll cut it out to make figurative people, in the works. So this is very different. And just a little tidbit is that Jarvis and I were like, oh, this is going to be the calm, spiritual room. And then we were like, oh, Wesley, those are really colorful. Mahari, those are really colorful. And this is our little area of calm.
Yeah,
we thought the whole room was going to be calm, but it balances.